UNLV Microcertificate Economics. All right. Profit. We've been talking about profit and we know what it is, but we need to get more technical about profit for a second. Economists and accountants do not treat profit the same way. And the reason is that economists take into account the fact that you need to earn a profit in a business to stay in business. So let's suppose that you start a new business and you make $1 million in a year. You make $1 million in a year. But you spent, to make that $1 million, you spent $999,999. So at the end of the year, your accountant comes up to you and goes, "Hey, good job! Here's your dollar." Well, to an economist, that dollar is not really a profit because you could have spent the time you spent working at your own business. You could have spent that as a barista at Starbucks and made that dollar every 10 minutes that you were at work. Yeah? You need to make a certain amount of profit or you're not going to stay in business. That means that that profit that you're making, that minimum amount of profit you're making to stay in business, that's really a cost. That's not profit. Okay? And accountants just don't get that. So economists separate profit into two categories. One is what we call normal profit. Normal profit is enough profit to stay in business. And that is actually an opportunity cost. So if you start your own business and you say, look, if I'm not making, $80,000 by 3 years in, I'm going to stop. Well, that $80,000 is your normal profit. And it's not really a profit. It's a cost of doing business. It's you paying yourself for running that company. All right? Economic profit is profit that you earn that's above economic profit. So if you said, hey, I need to make $80,000 a year, I'm not going to stay in business, and you're making 100, 120, 150. Well, all that extra money is economic profit. That's just gravy on top of there. That's not a cost of doing business. Okay, that's extra. Normal profit is a cost. So when an economist says you're breaking even, that means you're making enough profit. You're making normal profit and you're staying in business. An accountant who says you're breaking even, if you break even for 10 years, you're going to go out of business. You need to make money. But an economist includes that need to make some money in cost. So when an economist says my business is breaking even, that includes enough money, enough profit, normal profit, so that I will stay in business. Okay, so we maximize profits by producing scarce products with optimal combination of land, labor, and capital. Somebody has to figure out the best way to bring together land, labor, and capital, and we make things that people want, right? So Apple sells a lot of MacBooks, especially to college students. They have a way that's a scarce product, right? People like them, they buy them. Land, labor, and capital. Apple, the screen is made in Taiwan. Most of the parts are made in China. Those parts are all shipped together and they put together in a factory in Texas, and it was designed in California. Okay? Apple puts resources where they can use them to make their product with the highest possible profit. Okay. So businesses are categorized, and these are the legal classifications. So these are the classifications that a lawyer would talk about or a tax accountant would talk about. Economists don't talk about that often. So one type of business is called a proprietorship or the sole proprietorship. That's redundant, sole proprietorship, but proprietorship. Proprietorship is a business that is owned entirely by one person. Entirely by one person. Now, the problem with these proprietorships is the following. Let's say you open your own little restaurant and you're the proprietor. Somebody walks in, slips on some Coke that's sitting on the floor, hurts themselves, and sues you. In a proprietorship, the person and the business are one, which means if that person sues you, they can get the whole business and everything the business has, but they could get your car and your house and all of your personal possessions, because there's no separation between you and the business. Because of that, proprietorships tend to be small. There's more than 20 million of them in the United States. 1 in every 10 working people has a proprietorship. And proprietorship, it's simple. You could be an independent contractor, an Uber driver, or a basketball referee. That makes you a proprietor. You write sleazy novels. That makes you a proprietor. Lots of people have side gigs. Those side gigs make them a proprietor, and it creates liability for them if something's going on. Okay? So proprietorships, a lot of liability. That individual person is tied. They're part of their company. Okay? A partnership is when 2 or more people get together and create a company. Never do this. It's my professional opinion to you is never do this, because each partner has total liability for everything. And there's ways to get around it, but that means lawyers and you and a friend start a business, and you're the one who has all the business sense and you have the ideas, and your friend is, I don't know, there to help you. So you don't put in any money, you don't have any money, you don't put in any money. Your friend has some money, but uses that fact that they have assets to go out and get you a loan. So you get a $5 million loan, the two of you, but you don't have any money, but you get this $5 million loan. Your friend steals the $5 million loan and runs off to Brazil. Well, your friend got the loan, and you were partners in the business. How much do you owe the bank? The answer is you owe the whole $5 million. You didn't steal it. You didn't go get it. And you only owned half the business, but you owe the whole loan back. Okay? There's only about 2.5 million partnerships in the world, and most of them are in the United States. Sorry, most of them are lawyers and accountants and people who do these kind of things for a living. Just saying. The most interesting kind of a business is a corporation. A corporation is a legally created person. It's a person. Ford Motor Company is essentially a person. It has every right under the Constitution that you do. So Ford Motor Company has a right of free speech. It has a right to peaceably assemble. It has a right to be faced by its accusers. It has a right against illegal search. It has a right to due process and equal protection under the law. It can't get married. It can merge, though. And it can't vote, but it can buy politicians. So basically, it's just this legally created person. Why? Well, remember the problems with being a proprietorship or partnership is that if you get sued, it falls on you personally. Well, now we've created this legal person. So if you're going to sue Ford Motor Company because people in Ford did something to you, you don't get to sue those people. You sue this legal person called Ford Motor Company. And that creates limited liability. That's why you see sometimes in corporations LLC, which means limited liability company. Right? Limited. You limit the liability. Again, what's that mean? We'll come back to that in a second. But it's protection. It protects the people in the corporation from liability. Corporations, because they are people, are immortal. Just because the founder of IBM died 100 years ago does not mean that IBM goes away. A proprietorship or partnership, in a proprietorship, the proprietor dies, the company dies. In a partnership, if any of the partners die, the partnership has to start over. Corporations are immortal. Corporations also have the advantage they can sell shares of stock. That makes it easier for corporations to raise money. The limited liability also makes it easier for them to raise money. If you're a proprietor and you're starting a restaurant and you say, hey, give me some money, help me out, well, that's a dangerous thing to do. Because if they get sued, the lawyer who's suing them might come after you because you're somehow tied to that proprietorship. If you put money into a corporation, if you buy corporation stock and you put money in the corporation, the only thing you can ever lose is the money you put in. They can't come after you. Okay? There are about 5.5 million corporations in the United States. All right, now I put a Ford Pinto over here because the Ford Pinto is a great example of what limited liability means. So Ford built this car called a Pinto. It was their first ever small car. It's in the 70s. They built these Pintos. All right. If you know anything about old cars used to have the gas station, the gas filler nozzle where the gas pump goes. In the back, under the trunk, under the license plate, you would actually pull the license plate down. It was hinged. Pull the license plate down, and that's where the gasoline would go. Okay? Now, it turns out that because of where the gas tank was on the Pinto, way back in the back and the way it was set up, if the Pinto got rear-ended, it tended to blow up. So Pintos were blowing up and killing people. Blowing up and killing people. So we got all these dead people, and they're going to sue Ford Motor Company. They go and ask Ford for any data they have on the Pinto, and Ford kept all this data that they had. So among the things Ford turned over to the lawyers was film of prototype Pintos blowing up and a memo from the lawyers in the company that said, go ahead and send the Pinto out. The cost of any lawsuits for dead Pinto owners will be less than what it would cost us to fix the Pintos in the first place. Now, you have these engineers that designed the car and it was bad. Can you sue them? No. You have these lawyers who knew that the Pinto was bad and advised the company to sell it anyhow, even though they knew people were going to die. Can you sue them? No. You have these corporate executives, knowing that people were going to die, authorize the sale of the Pinto without change. Can you sue them? No. So the fact that it's a corporation shields these people from being sued. You sue Ford Motor Company, and fortunately the jury had this memo that said, the legal costs will never exceed. Well, they made sure that Ford had to pay a lot more money out in payments to the people who were killed, to their families, than it would have cost to fix the Pinto. And they fixed the Pinto, but people stopped buying them anyhow, and there are no Pintos in the world. Okay? But there's this corporate shield, it's called, that protects the people inside the corporation. And that means it's easier to get investors, it's easier to have employees. Everybody is protected, and sometimes they can abuse that protection, but overall, the people inside the company and its owners are protected. All right. Within corporations, there are many corporations that are called multinationals. We need to just briefly make sure we understand what that means. A multinational corporation isn't a corporation that exports or imports. To be a multinational, you have to own facilities in other countries. Okay? So Boeing really isn't a multinational. They sell all over the world, but their operations are almost all in the United States. Okay? General Motors, on the other hand, is a multinational. General Motors has car brands called things like Wuling, which are sold not in the United States. They used to sell Opels, and they just sold that company. That's a German brand that they owned for many years, and they just sold that off. I didn't put Buick up here, but they sell Buicks in China. Buick is one of the best-selling brands in China. General Motors owns companies that operate on every continent except for Antarctica. That's a multinational. So when we think, oh, General Motors is an American company, no. They're a global company. They're a multinational company. 1 in 7 Americans works for a multinational. If you look at Las Vegas, all the big companies, Caesars, MGM, Wynn, Las Vegas Sands, are all multinationals. They have casinos outside the United States and inside the United States. Okay? So they're not loyal to the United States. the Vegas gaming companies aren't necessarily loyal to Las Vegas. They take profits from Las Vegas and they build casinos in Macau or build casinos in Detroit or build. So the multinationals have these operations that are spread all over the world, and that affects the way they work. Okay. The economist view of businesses is to separate businesses out by type of industry. Type of industry. And there are 4 industry types. 4 of them. And I know I put a lot of stuff up here, but we'll go through this really quick, and then of course we have a chapter on each one of these. So first are businesses that we call perfect competition. Perfect competition means supply and demand actually works. Supply and demand works in those industries the same way theoretically that we teach it. There's no modifications because of the way those businesses work. Perfect competition means there's many small firms, they're easy to start and to quit, and they sell identical products. They basically sell identical products. So we're talking about farming, maybe some parts of farming, but not much else than that fits into perfect competition. Monopolistic competition is when you have lots of small firms. They're easy to start, they're easy to quit, but they have differentiated products. They sell products that are different from each other. So restaurants, there's lots of small restaurants. It's pretty easy to start a restaurant. It's pretty easy to shut your restaurant down if things aren't going well. And the restaurants all have slightly differentiated products. That's monopolistic competition. Where there's a few firms, and there's no definite number here, a few firms, we have something called oligopoly. So airlines, there's a few airlines. There's not a lot of them. There's a few of them. There's a few car companies. Okay? Those companies tend to be bigger, and they tend to have to react to each other in different ways. So those businesses have some very interesting theory. And then monopoly is when they're only one. So NV Energy is a monopoly. Southwest Gas is a monopoly. The cable company is a monopoly. One seller, one seller of a product is a monopoly. Okay, let's move on. Let's launch.